Well, if you're watching the news, you're seeing that there's a lot of opinions about the Iran and Israel war and whether the United States should join in or not. Everybody's got their own opinion. But I want to put things down in a context that's easy to understand so that we know what you and I should pay attention to and what we should do. And the first thing you need to understand is all the experts and analysts that are telling you that we should join or that we shouldn't join, well, they're all basing their viewpoints on partial information and their own opinions. And be quite honest, well, we are all experts in our own minds, and that's kind of what you got. In reality, the only one that has the full information and knows truly what's going on, well, it's the White House, the president, the military. Regardless of what the media or anyone else says, they are the ones that has the full information, not us. The second thing that you want to look at is that, well, think about history. I want you to think about Herbert Bush and the first Gulf War. Now, at the end of the Gulf War, they had an opportunity to capture Saddam Hussein and take him out, and they chose not to do it. And that's been a controversy, whether he should or shouldn't have. We didn't. I can tell you two results of that. One is President Bush at the time, his popularity soared. Patriotism was super high, and yet he loses an election in a bid for a second term. And then 12 years later, we have to have another Gulf War to do what he could have easily done 12 years earlier. And so there's a thing where God will put something in our grasp, and if we don't take it, that's a problem. And so what President Bush is, or what President Trump is looking at here is a two-edged sword. If he does something that God doesn't want him to do, what's going to end bad for the nation and those involved? But if he chooses not to do something that God does want him to do, then that also ends bad. The only way that this turns out good is if God's will is done. And we need to remember that God has put him in control. He has the decision to make. And you and I, well, we should be supporting him in prayer and praying for God to give him wisdom, for God to fill him with his spirit, to anoint him with his spirit, so that God's wisdom and God's counsel is followed and done. To pray for God to keep President Trump from temptation and to give him the will and strength to do what's right in God's eyes. If he does that, then things go well for this nation and for all those involved. And whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent, whether you like Trump or don't like Trump, if you hate Trump, if you are wise, you will be supporting him in prayer for God to give him wisdom, because he is the one that has to make this decision. And we want him to make the right decision. And we need to support our leaders in prayer so that God will bless our nation. Just something to think about. Take care and God bless.